Hello. What we did so far is we created all our iterations and we are down to the very last one. As you see, the application grew in sophistication. We have done a lot. Every time after each one of those, we reviewed where we are. If there's any change we want to make, we can change it. Your mind now is growing in many directions of things you can add, things you can modify, things you can make look better, and some many variations, and I welcome that, and I like you to let yourself expand on the different elements here. So we're done with moving or copying the color to the new view and displaying it. In this iteration, we'll use the color to paint in the new view. This has a lot more challenges, so hopefully you are comfortable with where we are right now, and we'll be able to enjoy this iteration. The outcome is going to be very fun, and we will learn about many different pieces in here. So this is iteration number 8, and I'm going to label it painting or drawing. So let's start with problem formulation. And this defines the scope of this iteration, and our scope is paint, use the color, or draw on the screen on the second view using the color selected in the first. That's the scope. So we used we colored the second view using color selected first. Now we're gonna draw instead of painting. There's a lot of unknowns here. You'll be like, oh, draw, how would I even do that? We will learn together and let the process lead us through the learning. So the second step is solution formulation. And we're following the model view controller or MVC design pattern. So step 1 is the model. And I am really stuck. I don't know. I already have a view. I already have the color. I don't know what models do I have. So, okay. You can say not sure for now. Then the view. Well, there's a lot on the view. Let's take a look at, so on the view we need to paint. So there are 3 things with painting, and then I want you, whenever you come to a task that you want the app to do and you're not sure how to do it, let's step outside the software universe into our own universe. If I tell you paint, what are you going to do? You're probably gonna pick up a pen, you're gonna pick up a paper, and you will start painting on the paper. If you're really into it, you will first select the color of the pen and maybe even the width of the pen and come and then start coloring. There are 3 things you need to have in painting, and that will be the canvas, what you are painting on, the paper in this case, in the example I gave, the brush, what you're painting with, and the color. A color that you are, you can color the brush. So you have the canvas and you have the brush and the thing that you're actually painting, the shape or something that you want to use. So on the view, we need to have the canvas, and we need to have a brush. Our view, our screen, and we're gonna paint on the second screen. Here is the second screen. The second screen has a view in here. There are many different ways for painting. I want to paint in such a way that I can go back, change the color, and come back again. So I want the canvas to be connected between the two screens, so I can go back and forth without the painting, losing the painting or the drawing that I already made. So I need to create a canvas in here. And you can choose whatever size you want. I'm gonna create a canvas with the entire size of the view. So this will be my canvas. Then I need a brush. The brush here will be the hand of the user. So the user will use their finger to paint. In your case, if you're able to put the app on your phone, you can use your finger and paint. If not, we'll use the mouse on the screen to paint on the simulator. So the brush is the user finger and user hand. But we need to simulate that user's hand. So if I'm going to paint here, see what I'm doing? I am touching, and then I am moving the touch. That's painting. So what I did here, I made a point, and then I made another point, another point, another point, and I connected all those points together in order to make whatever shape. If I want to paint a triangle, I made the triangle. So I touched, moved, moved, moved. So that shape that I created is basically a trace of the point with the touch when the touch has moved. But if I go back, if I click and go back to the previous screen, which I don't have room to make it the same size, so excuse that, but it is in the same size. Go back to that same previous screen and come back to this view, a new view is created. So I'm gonna lose this canvas. So this canvas needs to be here. It needs to start from here and assigned to the second screen the same way we did with the color. So I need to create this canvas in the controller of the first screen, use the segue to move it or to copy it to a canvas on the second screen, to an object on the second screen, so that there's a link between the two and the color is retained. So that then means I really have a model, which is the canvas. I need to model the canvas of the user. And the type I'm going to use is called UIImageView. There are other types. I'm going to use UIImageView here. I also need to model the path of the user's touch. And the model, the library I'm going to use for this is called UIBezierPath. Again, there are different ways of coloring. So these are the libraries I'm going to use, and both of these will be in the second view, but the canvas will start from the first view. So I'm going to need to define, create the canvas in the second view and copy it to a location in the second view, and you will see how we're going to do that. So that's the model, the view, and then the third step is the controller. I'm sorry, not the third step. The third element of the design is the controller. And there are steps that we're going to do in the first screen controller. First screen. And in the controller of the first screen, I need to define a canvas model or type. We call it object. Based on the UIImageView, we need to set the size to the frame the entire screen. Then we need to copy the canvas to the second view. And in the second view, I need to define a UIImageView property or attribute like I did with the color so that I can copy the canvas to it. I need to add it as a subview, add it to the view. What view? Add it to the second screen. And then I need to, in the controller, I have the what and then the when. So when do I add it to the second view? I'm gonna do this in the view.load. So when the view loads, I need the canvas to be added. Then I need to trace the user touch and paint the touch. When does this happen? There are two times when this happens. When the touch begins, when the user first touches the screen, this defines the beginning, and when the user moves their finger on the screen. These two are life cycle events. By life cycle events, I mean they already exist, are already defined, the operating system captures the events. All I need to do is to override the function for these two so I can receive the operating system notification and add my own instruction. So what are my own instruction? I need to trace the point. So I need to define another model. Actually, I already defined it, the path, the UIBezierPath. I need to define the touch because the touch has the location. When the user touches the screen, it gives me the location, and the touch is part of a library called UITouch. All right, so the third step here is solution implementation. And there are multiple steps. I'm gonna start with the second view and have create the canvas and add it as a subview. Then I'm gonna go to the first view, create the this is the canvas copy, the canvas, set the size, and then copy to the second view. Then I will switch to the second view again and add touchBegan event, touchBegan function, and touchMove, and then add instruction to retrieve the touch location. I don't know how to do that, but I'm gonna use the library to tell me how to do that. And then add the location to the path. And I need to do that when the touch move and when the touch begin. So in the touch move, after I have the path with all the point, I need to define an image context to draw in, and then I need to set the color, set width, and stroke the color. And that's all. So let's see how we can go ahead and implement this. First steps first. Second view, create the canvas. So I am here in the second view, the same way I did with the color. So I come here and say variable, and I'm going to call this canvas, and this will be of type UIImageView, and I'll use the exclamation mark. Then I go to the first view, and I will do the same. So I will say variable, and I'm gonna call it painting canvas and give it the type UIImageView and add the optional. Then in the viewDidLoad, set the size. So I'll say the painting canvas equal, and then I want to create a UIImageView. So the same way I did with color, use UIImageView, and you can create with different size. You can create a UIImageView with an image or with a frame. A frame is just a rectangle. So I'm going to create it with a frame, but I don't want to define. You can define any frame size you want by defining a rectangle. You can look up CG rectangle and it will tell you how to define it, but I want to define it the same size as the screen. So I'm going to go to self and say give me the view, and I'm going to go to the view and say what is your frame, and the frame here is the same CG rectangle. So that's it. So I'm creating an image view with the same frame as the screen. Then in the destination, I'm going to assign, add step number 3, assign the canvas in the destination to the painting canvas that was created. So I say destination.canvas equal the painting canvas. So I added the definition here. I added set the size in the viewDidLoad. Then in the prepare for segue, I set that. And notice that I'm folding the change color because I'm not really using the change color at all here. Then I go back to my color view, and I have the canvas in the viewDidLoad. I no longer need to do this, so I'm going to comment this out. And in step 2 here, I'm going to add the canvas to the main view, to the view. So I say self, give me the view. This time I don't want to do a background color. I want to add, and one thing I can add is a subview. So I add a subview, meaning add a layer. It's like adding a layer to it. And the subview here is the canvas layer that I have, which is, this is an image view. Yes, but an image view is also a view. So this is why I can add it. So I add the canvas view in here. Then I need to start working on the touches and on the path. So I need to define the path model. So I say variable path, and I'm going to use the UIBezierPath type. This will be the path that will have all the points that the user moved with or touched with. So now add the touch. So start typing touch. Xcode recognizes what you are trying to do. These are all the life cycle events related to touch. There's touch began and touch moved, canceled and ended. I'm going to stay with began and moved. You may, as you get comfortable, do something at these events as well. Xcode give you the method, and I want to also use the touchesMoved and say now I have, by adding this function, it's empty, but adding it, I'm notifying the operating system that when the user touches that second view, come here and do whatever I tell you. So what do I want to do on the touch began? The touch began is where you define the first point in the path. The path is whatever the user painted. So to define the first point, I need to retrieve the touch. Now, the touch comes about part of a collection. The NS set is a collection that has all unique touches. So I want to retrieve from all of those collections, I want to retrieve a single touch. So I'm going to need to do some magic here to retrieve that single touch. So I start with step number 1. where I want to retrieve the user touch because I want the location. To get the location, I want to know where the user touched on the screen. So I'll use the touches are here in this collection. So I say touches, which is a set. Then I want to come from the touches and say, give me all the touches that you have. So I say touches, give me all the touches. So it gives me all the touches as a collection. So I can take that collection as a type and use NsArray. So I'll say, give me all the touches you have as an array. We used array in project number 1, which is just a model for collections. And then say, let all touches equal this. But I don't want all touches. I want a single one. It's like you had a list of quotes and we got a single quote. So I can go to the all touches and say, give me one quote, object at index, and I'm just going to get the very first touch on the list. And I'm going to get this as a UI touch type. So this is the UI touch model. And equal, and say here, sorry, let touch equal all touches. So now I retrieve the user touch. Now I need to get the location on the screen for that touch. So the location of the screen comes from the touch itself. So I say to the touch, give me your location. So here it is, the location in the view. And what the location in view, it gives you back a type CG point. So the location in view, it says which reference do you want the location to, because you have layers. So I can say in the canvas or in the view because I have them both in the same side. So I can say I want the location relative to the view. Then that location I want to assign it. So I'll say let starting point equal touch. Then step number 3, add the starting point to the path. So I use the path, the UIBezierPath, and say UIBezierPath move to point and starting point. So now the starting points move to the path. Now I have not created the path yet. I defined the path and I said I will ignore if the path is empty. But do I really want to move to point if the path doesn't exist in memory? I actually have to create that path in memory. And I can do that here in the add view. So I can come here and say create the path in memory. So I can say path equal UIBezierPath and use this double quotation, which is basically notifies or calls the initializer of the UIBezierPath to initialize. So now I have guarantee that the UIBezierPath is initialized and does exist in memory. Then I move to point to the starting point. Now that's all what I need with the touch begins. Now when the touch moves, I need to do the same thing. I can actually just copy that. So we'll copy and move. Except for the path. This is no longer a starting point. So maybe copying was not really what I needed to do for all of them. I just need to copy the first step, retrieving the touch. Now that I have to the touch, I need to get the location, and this will be our current point. So I will say let current point equal touch dot location in view self dot view. So I got the location. And then step number 3, add the current point to the path. So I need to tell the path, add line to point. You can add line, you can add a curve or a line or arc with center. So here I'm going to add a line to the current point. Where is it going to add from? From the first one. So basically you're adding all the points associated with the touch to this path. Now that I have this, let's draw. So to draw, you need to define a context for your drawing. So I will create or define an image context to draw inside it. So I say UI graphics and begin image context for a certain size. So what is the size that I want? I want the size of the canvas. So this is the size of the canvas, and that begins an image context. And then at some point I will end the image context by calling end image context. So I'll do it here. Inside you draw the image that you want. So inside I'll say, let's say 4.1, and do the closing in here, end the graphics context. So 4.1, I need to set the color. So I need to set the color. So we'll say that the color dot set stroke. So this will set the subsequent stroke operation to this color. Then we need to set the width of the stroke. So I say path dot set line width. Actually line width directly. And we assign the value to the line width to any value. So let's say 3. And you can see if this is wide enough or if you want to change it. So I set the color and I change it that. And then step number 3 is I need to draw Step number 3 is to draw for now. So to draw, we say to the path, I want you to stroke. This will draw a line. There's also fill if you want to fill the path. So stroke, and that will draw the line. Then once you draw the line, I need to take that image and put it in the canvas. So I say canvas.image so that it can show, and tell the UI graphic context get image from current context. So basically I am drawing an image on the context, and then I retrieve that image and assign it to the image property of the image view. So step number 4 is to retrieve the image from the context and assign it to the image property, the image property. Alright, so let's see how this looks. So let's choose a color, go and draw, and here it is. So you can draw everything you want. It traces, so this is the touch begin, makes the first point, then as I move, the touch moves with me, And every time the touch move, for every point the touch move through the canvas, this function is called. So this function is called probably tens or maybe even hundreds if you move all over those points, depending on the resolution of the screen. Every time it comes here, retrieves the location, add the location to the path, and makes an image and connect the image and then set it to the canvas. If I go back and change the color and come back here and change, it removed the previous image, because when I began the drawing, the previous image is gone. So I don't want that. I want the previous image to stay, and I change the color and come back again. So when I begin an image context and I start an image context from scratch and retrieve this, put it to the image, before I start drawing, I want to take, if there is already an image in the canvas, I want to draw that image first. So if I come here and say 4.0, draw the existing image first before drawing the new path. So to draw this, I need to come to the actual image and say draw that image in this canvas. So I say I want to retrieve the image from the canvas and say I want you to draw in the rectangle. So draw at a point or draw in a rectangle. So I say I want you to draw in a rectangle, and I want you to draw inside the canvas. That's self canvas.frame. I say I want you to draw in the canvas.frame. Now the image may be null, so this is why the question mark came, because that's an optional. It may have a problem, and the question mark, it's added when I use the function. Basically it says that I know that there is a possibility that there will be no data in the image. So here is the color. Now I go and draw the first one, so I know that this worked before. So let's go back, change the color, and see if what we did will fix it. So let's draw a face. So that fixed it. So the previous image is still there, and now the new image is here, and I can continue making a drawing, and the mouse is not really helping me to make a nice draw. Let's do a different color and do some hair here. And as you can see, I'm really not the drawing type person. And change more, and I can say here, I really don't know how to draw, and so on. So that's the end of this problem, and you see there is so much that we learned, and as we divided it, there are things that are simple that are required, there are things that are advanced. So take from this series or this module as much as you're able to without overwhelming yourself, and feel free to make additions, make changes, do different things. This UI get graphic context or the UIImageView, you can learn from the documentation more about it and see, for instance, can you save the image? Can you add a button here when the user click, it saves the image? What else can you do here? We used a brush size of 3. Maybe you can also add a slider where the user can choose what line width they want, and basically you do the same thing we did for the color, move it or copy it from this screen to the next screen, and so on. Thank you, and this will end this second module. That is the last video.